Good morning, students. Good morning to all. On last day, we have studied about the retailing and the types of retailing and about the departmental stores. So today, just we will go to the next chapters. So today, just we will study about the next chapter, chapter 25, the international business. So already we have studied about the international business in our economics also. So nowadays, the international business or the needs of the international business also increase day by day. So the international business always denotes all those business activities which take place beyond the geographical limits of the countries. Why we are involving in this international business means because of no one nations are having their self-reliances to producing any of the commodities. So all the nations have to depending upon any other nations in any of the ways. So the need for the international business is understood by all the nations. So the the international business denotes all those business activities which take place beyond the geographical limits of the country. It involves not only the international movements of goods and services, but also capital, personnel, technology, and intellectual properties like patent right, trademarks, know-how, and copyrights. So the methods of conducting international business. So what are the methods are there to conducting the international business? First one is exporting and importing. The exporting denotes selling of goods and services from the home country to a foreign country. Or if you want to sell any of the commodities to the another nations, that is called export. So importing refers to the purchasing of products from foreign country and bringing them India home countries. If we purchasing any of the commodities from the another one of the nations only for the purpose of use of the domestic countries, it is considered as a importing. Next, contract manufacturing. The contract manufacturing or outsourcing. So it connects type of international business where a firm enters into a contract with one or a few local manufacturers in foreign countries in order to get certain components of goods produced according to the specializations. It is also called outsourcing or contract manufacturing. So really we have to arrange some of the exporters or the importer on the basis of contract to the manufacturer. Next, licensing or franchising. The licensing is contractual agreement wherein one firm grants access to its plants, trade secrets, or technology to another firm in a foreign country. So the firm which grants such permissions is called licensor or franchisor, and other firm to whom the license is granted is called license or franchise. Already we have studied the franchising or the licensing. If any of the manufacturer want to sell the commodities by any of the other persons, the manufacturer have to give the license. So like that in this international business also, the manufacturer have to provide the license to the exporters. Next, joint venture. A joint venture is a business agreement wherein parties agree to develop a new entity and assets, subscribing to equity shares and thereby accessing control over enterprises and consequently sharing revenues, expenses, and the assets. So joint ventures means so some particular peoples are have to join together and they have to conduct the export or the import business. Next, foreign direct investment. So foreign direct investment means the investment made by a company The individual is one country in the business interest in another country in the form of either establishing new business operations or acquiring business assets. So already we have studied about the foreign direct investment. So if any of the foreigners want to make the investment to establish any of the companies or the industries in our home countries, for that one of the host countries have to allowed. So normally on the basis of 1991 economic policies, so the global level, so we have get the chance to make the foreign direct investment. Next, the features of international business. So what are the features are there in this international business means? Under the headings we can come to know. First one is involvement of countries. The international business can take place only when transactions occurs across different countries. The transaction of money or transaction of goods and services from one nations to another nations is considered as a international business. Next, use of foreign exchange. So where countries trade with one another, it has to exchange the goods and services on the basis of foreign currencies. So nowadays all the nations are having the need of more foreign currencies, and is one of the important and the most appropriate way to earning the foreign currency is involvement in this international business. Next, legal obligations. The foreign trade is to be conducted strictly in accordance with the export and import policy of the country concerned. So there is more legal obligations are there formed by the particular nations. So on the basis of rules and regulations only, the import or export or the foreign business have to conduct. So the consent of the government is to be mandatorily obtained with reference to export and import of certain goods and services. Next, exposure to risk. The international business imposes huge risks on the parties that due to the long distance fluctuations of value of currency, obsolescence, sanctions, war, etc. So the foreign business or the international business also has the many risks from many factors. So next, heavy documentations work. So international business necessitates the fulfillment of a lot of formalities. The parties to international business have to execute a number of documents in the matters of conducting the international business. So many of the import and the export procedures are there. So all the procedures have to maintained by the exporter and the importer. So after fulfilling the heavy documentations work only, the international business will be occurs. Next, the difference in economic environment. The economic environment of countries involved in international business differs significantly in terms of legal framework, institutions setup, monetary and fiscal commercial policies, resources availability, production techniques, etc. So, before involving in the international business, so there are many economic difference are there. So many economic environment difference are there among the legal framework, institution setup, monetary policy, fiscal policy, and the commercial policies, and the availability of resources on the basis of the nations. So many economic environment also may be differed in this international business. Next, rationale behind the international business. First one is unequal distribution of natural resources. The countries across the world are not endowed with the natural resources of various types. So the various types of resources also not equally or equitable. So, in other words, if you want to say, the natural resources are unevenly spread across the various nations. As a result, the countries having surplus resources have to exchange it for those resources which are not available in their home countries. So, as I told already, no nations are having the self-reliance to cultivate any of the food or producing any of the commodities. So all the nations have to depending on another one of the nations for any line of the product. So which nations are having the most appropriate or surplus value of the resources that nations have to produce and export to the another nations which has the low level of the resources. Next, uneven availability of the factor of productions. The availability of various factors of productions. So we know the land, labor, capital, and organizations or technology for producing goods and services different among the different countries. So now some of the nations will have more availability in the labor or land, or sometimes the organizations or some of the developed nations will have more capital and they will never have the labor. So international business moves the surplus factor in one country over to the another countries where it is short supply. Therefore, international business is necessary. We know some of the nations may have developed in these natural resources and in this GDP. But the developed nations may have the low level of the populations and the skillful labors. And sometimes some of the developing nations such as the India and China may have more populations and less developed and less technological and skilled persons. So we have to change the factor of productions from one nation to another one of the nations for the purpose of producing any of the commodities. Next, specializations. Some particular countries or some geographical areas of a certain country specialize in the productions of goods and services due to some natural advantages like abundant availability of skilled laborers, favorable climate conditions, availability of natural resources. So anyway, some of the factors or some of the reasons, some of the nations are having the more specialized to producing some particular line of the commodities, and because of that, that nations will become as a specialized nations for producing particular commodities. So the specializations also one of the reasons to involving in this international trade. Next, cost benefit. So production cost varies significantly among the countries due to difference in socio-economic, geographical, demographical, technological and political environment. So many of the difference are there to producing cost. The cost of product is maybe differ from nation to nations because of some of the reasons and some of the factors. So by receiving the cost benefit also, so many of the nations are involving in this international trade. Next, the types of international business. Already we have studied in our previous lessons also. So many of the there are three type of the trades are there in this international business. One is the export trade. When the firm of a country sells goods and services to a firm of another country, it is called export trade. The export trade indicates selling of goods and services from the home country to a foreign country. Next, import trade. So when the business firm of a country purchases goods from the firm of another country, it is called import trade. Next, entry port trade. Entry port trade means some of the nations will importing any of the commodities from one nations and by modifying that same commodities, and after that it will be export to the another one of the nations. Simply if you want to say about the entry port trade, for the purpose of re-exporting to the another one of the nations. If you want to import any of the commodity from one nations, that is called end-report trade. So in this end-report trade, some of the features are there. Import duty is not levied on such goods. So in this end-report trade, the countries are undertaking the end-report trade. They never paying the tax. Next, these goods are reprocessed and repacked for re-export. Next, such goods are kept in the bonded warehouses till they are re-exported. Next, advantages of international business. When all the nations are involving in this international trade, so what are the advantages may be arise? First one is the geographical specializations. So countries across the world differ significantly in terms of natural resources, capital equipment, manpower, technology and land and so on. Some countries are rich in mineral resources, hydroelectricity power, metallic resources. So all the nations may have the chance to receiving the geographical specializations of another nations. For producing any of the commodities, all the nations are not having the same skill and same specialized or same features. And the nations, those who has the specialized skill, that nations only may be created. Next, the optimum use of natural resources. The international business operates on a simple principles that a country which can produce more efficiently and trade the surplus production with other countries. Next, economic development. The international business helps the developing countries greatly in achieving rapid economic development by importing machineries, equipment, technology, and talent, and so on. So, for the purpose of transferring the all skills and technology from one nation to another one of the nations, mostly from the undeveloped nations to underdeveloped nations, the underdeveloped nations may have the chance to increase. Next, generations of employment. The international business generates the employment opportunities by assisting the expansion and growth of agricultural and industrial activities. So, what are the types of industry sectors are established by the nations so that nations may have more chance to receiving or generating the employment opportunity. Next, higher standard of living. So, on account of international business, the citizens of the country can buy more varieties of goods and services which cannot be produced cost effectively within the home country. So anyway, so all the nations, all the peoples of throughout the world can have more chance or opportunity to increasing the higher standard of living. Next, price equalizations. The international business helps to establishes the prices of various commodities which are fluctuating on a daily basis in the world market. So whenever the supply of the product is increased, so the demand also may be fulfilled, or whenever the demand for the product is increased, so on the basis of the demand, the supply of commodities also may be increased by the way of import and export. So the price always may be equal throughout the world. And because of that, the purchasing power of the consumers also may be increased, and because of that, the standard of living also may be increased. Next, prospect for higher profit. The international business helps the firms which produce goods in excess to sell them at relatively higher prices to various countries in the international market. This enables them to earn higher profit. So whenever the nations are having the chance to fixing the high rate of the product, so the nations may have chance to earning more profit. Next, capacity utilizations. The international business enables the firms across the country to sell their goods and services on a large scale in the international market. As a result, their machinery and equipments are used to their full capacity in short very prospect of selling goods in the international market. So all type of the resources are going to utilized on the basis of their full capacity. Next, international peace. The international business makes countries across the world become the interdependent while these countries are independent in their functioning. This facilitates the exchange of culture, ideas, and mutual understanding. It develops and strengthening cultural and social relations among the people or different countries. So this because of this way, so throughout the world, so all of the nations may have the peace. The international peace also may be arranged among the nations. Okay, students, I think it's enough. If you have any doubt, please ask me. And just to take the advantages of international business as your study process. Thank you.